Sorry, I'll be comment. Can everyone see that? If you can't see it, let me know, because I can no longer see you all. Everyone seems good. I see a hand raised. Yeah, go ahead. If your hand's raised, let's see, Martha.
I'm sorry, I was just going to tell you to leave it on the screen so I could enter it. Is that an O or a 0?
It's an O, as
Okay,
in
thank you.
open.
Great, thank you. Oh, open space RP. Okay.
Okay, so it seems like everybody's ready. Let's see, again, I apologize because I cannot see you all right now. View. Gallery. Matt.
Yes.
Your hand's up. You're good to go?
Good to go.
All right, thanks. Okay, so ground rules, really feel like I don't need to say much about this, but we are recording the meeting. They're probably unnecessary, but given all the amazing brain power in the room tonight, I want to make sure we're using the opportunity to make progress. So just keep that in mind, please. Are there any initial questions? And what I will ask is that in the Slido app, you can ask questions and that will allow us to record them, answer them after the fact. I will have someone helping, looking at the questions, trying to consolidate them, and we'll also follow up, try to answer those after the presentation. I see a hand up. Is there a question about the format? No. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go into our first quiz question. This is a multiple choice question. Check your phone that this poll showed up and then select up to 3 options.
Brandon, we cannot see the slides.
I apologize. Oops, sorry. Keep going.
Hey, Brandon.
Yes.
Because everybody joined at different times, I don't know if you reviewed this, but can you just do a setup for what we're doing here? What's the objective of the meeting and how will these poll results be used and what are you trying to achieve?
Sure. So these are really just setting up, kind of getting everybody comfortable with the application. Later on, we're going to be, I'll go into what we've done so far and the data we're going to be collecting and why. So really, this question is just kind of an introductory question and try to get you used to using this application on the phone. Okay, I see about 30 people have answered. So all of these got at least some some vote. I am curious if you put other, what other place did I miss on my list? Maybe put it in the question and answer. All right, I'm going to move on to the next poll. This poll asks you to use a word cloud. So you're limited to 25 characters. In a short statement, explain what you like to do most at your favorite open space. I like listening to bugs. Laura, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question? Okay, I'm going to move on in about 15 seconds. Looks like people really enjoy walking. It's great. Okay, the next slide. This is just a silly one. If all of us tonight formed the next biggest band, what would we be called? Rank your preferences of the following band names. You don't have to select all of them, but you should see a bubble next to it. And you click the bubbles in order of your preference, and then you can move them around. Okay, it looks like we have about 28 responses, and we will now be called the Lord of the Tiny Owls. Thank you. Okay, so in a nutshell, I want to walk through what the open space and recreation plan is. This is a plan that the town puts out it used to be every 5 years. Now it is 7 years. And it has 8 required sections. It's a prescribed document, and all of the chapters are laid out by the state. It includes a community snapshot, an inventory of all the open space and recreation resources in the town. It also walks through the natural resource protection, community, and management needs of those open space and recreational resources. Through the public outreach and planning process, we develop goals and objectives and then an action plan. And that's really why we're here tonight, is to develop actionable items and move forward. I will say that for municipalities with an environmental justice populations, in which Wellesley has 2 environmental justice populations, census blocks that qualify as in EJ populations based on minority population. So in those communities, we do enhanced outreach. And so what we did in Wellesley was we did direct mailings to all the residences within those 2 EJ populations. In the initial survey, we sent direct mailings, and then as a follow-up for an invitation for tonight. Having an open space plan makes the town eligible to apply for self-help, urban self-help, land and water conservation funds, and other grant programs administered by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Division of Conservation Services. It also helps us guide policy decisions, maintain public spaces and recreational facilities, protect those spaces, develop and implement a capital improvement program, including ways to fund it. It also helps us improve public access and awareness of those resources. For the purposes of this plan, we're defining open space as public and private land that is undeveloped for public access to nature, protecting water quality, and protecting habitat. Of course, our open space offers much more than that. But this simple definition, I think, is typical of what the state defines open space as. In terms of recreation, this includes indoor and outdoor facilities, parks, playgrounds, multi-use fields, basketball, tennis, pickleball courts, ball fields, as well as all the fantastic programming that the recreation department offers. I will note that their recent winter catalog came out last Sunday, so if you haven't had a chance to read through that, I encourage everybody here to look through the offerings. In terms of Wellesley's open space and recreation plan, the current plan 2015 to 2022 is the 4th edition. And the NRC, as the Conservation Commission in the town, prepares and monitors the open space and recreation plan. We're now working on the 2022 to 2029 plan. And the previous plan had 11 goals and 110 action steps. I'll note that the open space and recreation plan, in terms of how the state looks at it, is limited to, in theory, limited to indoor and outdoor resources under the jurisdiction of the Park and Conservation Commission, the NRC in Wellesley, and the Recreation Commission. Of course, the Wellesley's open space plan includes land that goes beyond those jurisdictions. But in terms of our ADA self-assessment that I'll talk a little bit about later, they're really looking for the resources under those boards' jurisdictions. I realize this is probably very hard to read, but these are just pulled directly from the 2015 open space plan. These are just some of the examples of the action steps that are in that plan. And I put a little asterisk to the ones that I think have either been accomplished or have a lot of work has been completed on them. So rather than read all of them, I'll just say, I'll read through a few of them. So you could see implement the Fullerbrook Park Preservation Project, where needed change zoning to conservation, monitor the quality of the water flowing into the ponds, explore the pros and cons of installing an artificial turf athletic field. Excuse me. As part of the update process, we audit the previous list of action steps. We identify which actions have been accomplished and try to identify reasons why the ones that have not been accomplished yet. So I want to talk about the accomplishments. Fullerbrook Park, really an incredible amount of effort. I wasn't involved in any of the planning. It started right when I arrived, but this project meets so many goals, needs, aspirations of the town, talking about habitat restoration, historical preservation, alternative transportation, stormwater. This meets all of those, and I think everyone should be really proud about this project. Improvements at Honeywell Field. One of the action steps was investigating artificial turf at the field. At Honeywell, it now has artificial turf. There are 2 new restored softball fields at Lee and the multi-purpose field, the Diane P. Warren. The town has also since rehabilitated the tennis courts at Sprague, resurfaced and painted the court at Perrin, and is in the process of feasibility and design for new facilities at Morse's Pond. Morse's Pond harvesting. The water quality program is in its 13th year of implementation now. And while the water quality issues have improved dramatically, weed harvesting continues to present the biggest challenge in the pond. These images are a few of the sites that were identified in the Morse's Pond Erosion Remediation Project, including the Wellesley Conservation Land Trust, Pickle Point in the bottom right here, where volunteers worked alongside DPW staff to install steps along the heavily traveled and eroded site. The other sites are along the eastern edge of the pod near the well heads, where we had a contractor come and plant new plant material and install these erosion controls. The DPW has been instrumental in establishing native and pollinator-friendly landscapes around town, including a pollinator garden at the Wellesley Police Station and a replanted bed at Washington Street and Glen Road. The other picture here is from a reforestation effort that happened at Grove Street along Fuller Brook on the north side near the Wellesley Green Apartments. There's another similar area where several new trees were planted near the Whole Foods. I have some pictures of the additional capital improvements to the open space. There's the Vernal Pool Boardwalk, the Duck Pond Bridge, Memorial Grove in the bottom right, and sensory-friendly equipment at Warren Park. With the exception of Duck Pond Bridge, these examples all illustrate volunteer-led initiatives, from the participation on the board committee level to the hands-on volunteer projects and planning exercises. Really, the residents are really the town's greatest resource and most effective resource in advocating for the town's open space. In addition to some of those capital improvements, some of the action items, we're looking at zoning. So since the last plan, the town did adopt Natural Resources Protection District, audited and revised the tree preservation bylaw. The town undertook a comprehensive pond management plan that is being implemented by, again, the DPW under the guidance of our pond manager at the town's other 8 ponds. We have a town forest stewardship and bird habitat plan for the town forest. And while maybe not directly related to the use of the open space, the town passed a plastic bag ban. And at least anecdotally, I've seen many fewer plastic bags that have used to clutter the town's open space. So just a quick recap of the update process. We secured funding to support the update at the 2021 annual town meeting. Through our capital budget, we engaged a contract with Horsley Witten. We reviewed prior plans and data, including a complete audit of all the action steps and from the previous open space plan, as well as the unified plan. We disseminated that information to various boards and staff to consolidate those goals, see where action steps were completed or not, and try to consolidate them back into some meaningful goals. We developed and implemented a survey that hopefully you all had a chance to participate in. Of course, we're having the public forum tonight to confirm, adapt, and create action steps. Our GIS team has updated most of the maps already and will continue to update the ones related to our findings tonight and moving forward. And of course, we have to update the text of the plan. I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have to complete an ADA self-evaluation. This is really looking at our facilities and identifying needs in terms of accessibility. We do have a lot of this work that's already been done related to the playgrounds. The Public Works Department undertook a playground master plan. So we have a lot of that information. And then we'll need letters of review from the select board, the planning board, and our local regional planning agency, the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And then we submit it to the state for their review. As part of the update, we use this guide. If anybody is interested in it, it's available online. It's the Open Space and Recreation Planners Workbook. I included the chart on the right just to show you kind of some of the things don't need to be updated for an update. They would be only required in a new plan. Again, what have we looked at to inform this update? Our 2015 Open Space and Recreation Plan, the Unified Plan, Playground Master Plan, MVP Plan, the Climate Action Planning process that's currently underway, as well as updated GIS and census data, our survey data, and tonight's input. So to get into the survey data just a little bit, we did collect very limited demographic information, and I just brought these up to highlight. Of course, we want to reach a wide and diverse audience as we can. So I was relatively pleased with the demographic data that we got back, showing we have reached at least some portions of all these categories. And of course, we can always do better at this, but just kind of outlining the demographic. Okay, so I'll stop there briefly, ask Raina if any questions have come in through Slido, or offer an opportunity for other people to ask questions.
Hi, everybody. Brandon, so nothing has really come in about the process itself. We have some general questions. Things like, does Wellesley have any influence on the use of Elm Bank, given that Wellesley Soccer rents space? And how does the NRC work with the Park and Tree Department? And let's see. Oh, and here's a question. I don't know if we can answer it now, if we can get back to people, but what percentage of the open space in Wellesley is controlled by the town?
Okay. So these are great questions. I'm not sure they're the best use of our time together tonight, but I do want to answer them. And maybe we'll hold on those. How do we work with the Park and Tree Division? We work almost daily. I'm in contact with the Park and Tree foreman on a broad range of issues. Elm Bank, you know, in terms of the NRC's involvement, I'm not involved with their facilities, renting, permitting, etc. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on that in terms of permitting. But it's state land, and so I don't know how the permitting works with the state. The final one about the percentage of open space, can we maybe come back to that? Let's come. I appreciate the questions. Okay, so through the initial data gathering process, I mentioned we took all of the action points from the unified plan, open space plan, try to consolidate them, and then develop these goals with the NRC. And then our consultant team put out a survey. And through that survey, we got this data point. So we had 10 goals, and this is just the chart, but here is how they broke down. And so again, rather than, I guess I could take a minute and read all of these, but goal 1 was to restore, preserve, and enhance open space for water, air, and habitat protection, biodiversity, climate mitigation, enhancement of community character, and enjoyment of the public. 52.8% of the respondents listed this as one of their top 3 priorities. Goal 2 was to protect, enhance, and restore Wellesley's sensitive land, water, and wetlands resources, especially those resources that have been degraded or impaired, 43%. Goal 10, provide opportunities for safe and enjoyable walking and bicycle access throughout the town, 39.4. Goal 4, prevent damage to the natural resources and human health from hazardous materials and environmentally harmful practices. Goal 5, take action to address the accelerating climate change crisis by encouraging sustainable policy and practice within town government and throughout the community. Goal 9, ensure that open space and recreational programs continue to meet the needs of the town. Goal 3 was to expand and protect the tree canopy. Goal 8 was to promote the awareness and use of Wellesley's parks, recreation facilities, and open space resources for the use and enjoyment of the public. Goal 7 was to create resource management strategies to protect and increase open space and environmental resources. Finally, Goal 6 was to promote stewardship through environmental education, outreach, and programs. So that is how those ranked out in terms of people's top 3 goals. Associated with each of those goals was objectives. The survey also then asked folks to identify right action steps to meet these goals and objectives. So I've talked a lot, and now we're going to go back and ask you all to help participate. These goals are laid out the same way of preference that they were just outlined, you know, in order of kind of importance or how people voted on them. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is get back on the phones. We'll open another poll, and it's going to ask you to rank these 4. And what I would ask is, if one's confusing, either leave it blank or write in the comments, I didn't understand this goal or this action step.
Brandon, you might want to just explain to people that they have to click them in rank orders for them to appear in rank order.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can click the bullets in order that you want them ranked. I do believe that if you click them in the wrong order, you can move them around. But it's probably easiest on your phone to rank in the order that you are ranking them, to click in the order that you're ranking. Thanks. Okay, it looks like almost everyone has participated. And you can see how they rank out. Again, I think all of these goals are important. These were all identified through our survey process. So none of these are going to go away. But I think when we put our action plan together, they ask who will be responsible. They ask for a priority inside that 7 years. So this will kind of help us identify how these should be prioritized. All right, I'll move on. Goal number 2, just a reminder, and the action steps associated with it. I won't spend too much time on this slide because these choices will show up on the next slide. Okay, we're about there. Pretty close here. Saying focusing on Lake Waban, Morses Pond, and Longfellow Pond. Okay, goal number 10 was the next one identified. Oops, sorry about that. Provide opportunities for safe and enjoyable walking and bicycle access throughout town. Okay, thank you. Getting close. Okay, thanks. Goal 4, prevent damage to natural resources and human health. Okay, seemingly in order of how they were presented, I'll move on. Goal number 5, take action to address the accelerating climate change crisis. Okay, thank you. Pretty even split there between 1 and 2. Goal number 9, ensure that open space and recreational programs continue. Go to the poll. Just remember to scroll down because there are 7 actions. Okay, I'm going to move on. Go through. I appreciate everybody's patience with this. It's a lot to get through, but we're almost through these action steps. Goal number 3 is to expand and protect the tree canopy. Okay, thanks for your input. Just as a reminder, any resident can have a tree planted for free by the Public Works Department. Just send us an email and we'll try to set you up with one. Goal number 8 is to promote the awareness and use of parks, recreation facilities, and open space resources.
Hi, Brandon. This is Martha. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I've noticed that some of the questions don't require you to rank all items and some do. Was there some planfulness to that?
No, I would hope that people are ranking all of them.
Okay. It's just, I think it's inconsistent because some of the questions did not require you to rank all items.
Is it just on this one, or did you
I
notice
can
that?
take it off. I know this one required you to rank all items. There was, I think, an earlier question that did not require ranking of all items. And I just think
The one with 7 answers that didn't have just 4 didn't require ranking all of them.
yeah.
I wonder if that was a product of the software. That the intent was to have everyone rank every single one.
Is there any way we can go back to the one with?
Yes,
Sorry.
that's okay. I'll let everyone get done with this and then we'll go back. That was goal number 7.
It was either 2 questions ago or 1 question ago. I don't remember which had more than 4 options.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 questions ago.
I think I
And your
found
goal,
it.
Brandon, is to have us rank everything.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back. I apologize. I guess we'll have to redo that goal. The goal was goal number 9. And we'll start over. Sorry, everyone.
Brandon, while we're revisiting this, we did have a question about one of these questions. And it was, what does focusing NRC Commission activities on non-recreation spaces mean?
I believe it means that there's an interest that organizations who are focused on recreational activities should focus on those facilities, and the NRC should focus on other facilities, not focusing on recreational facilities, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Oop. People still working on that? Can I go ahead? All right. Expand and protect the tree canopy. We looked at that. Goal 8, we looked at that. Goal 7 was to create resource management strategies. And again, just scroll down, make sure you see all of them. Okay, we're at about 30 people have participated. We'll move on. Got 31. Thank you. Goal number 6 is to promote stewardship. I believe this is the last one. So I did a quick search. It's a little nuanced answer for the question about what percentage of open space is under municipal ownership. Under Chapter 97, which is the basically park and conservation status of property, there are 850.23 acres. And out of a total of about 2,200 acres of what is kind of considered open space. That's coming from an open space map we have on our website, if people want to look at that. But I will try to get a more accurate answer for everyone. All right, that's just about everyone. Thank you again. So we'll stop, say thank you. I know that was a lot to take in. And again, we're gonna take that information and try to develop some priority list. But I wanted to stop now, open it up again to questions about that material. If anybody has any comments. Raina, were there any questions that came in about that that are might be helpful to discuss?
Sure. So people were questioning whether and what the NRC can enforce. There was a comment that the NRC doesn't enforce traffic. And I think there might be a misconception that this is the NRC's open space and rec plan versus the town-wide open space and rec plan. So we share this with all the different boards and departments in town. So that's why we would ask about things like traffic enforcement. But I'm wondering, Brandon, if maybe you could say what the NRC can enforce, what is under our jurisdiction, perhaps?
Sure, I can try. So the wetlands has a whole enforcement piece to the regulations associated with wetlands. And of course, they extend beyond NRC school property, that private properties with wetland resources. So, so that is an enforcement responsibility of the NRC and the Wetlands Protection Committee. The town also has an encroachment policy that we can enforce. That's the NRC is also the tree warden for the town and responsible enforcing violations to Chapter 87, which is the rules that govern public shade trees. In addition to that, they set policies and, you know, in theory, set enforcement for park-related issues. I think the bylaw, the town bylaw, rests authority for enforcement of most infractions, for lack of a better word, with the police department. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. And other than that, they're just general questions and not specific about the action steps that we just completed.
Raina,
Yeah.
I think if you go into the comments section of the app,
Yeah,
the Q&A, I think there are a few that are, well, I guess they're comments rather than questions. One of them was, what if we think one of the suggested actions is stupid? I should be able to not select. That's from some, I mean, you can read them, not me.
Yeah.
I'm just reading
So-
them from the top.
right. So I know that we're planning on addressing these and putting out like a Q&A after this, because some of them are more specific than others.
Yeah.
And some are just comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate point. If someone was didn't like the way a question was, a comment was worded, or didn't agree with it, we'd appreciate knowing about that. But again, trying to be respectful. Those action steps were developed from surveys from your fellow community members. So I just would appreciate if you could try to frame that constructive criticism in a positive way. And be very interested what that is.
And to be clear, that was not my comment.
Fair enough. Okay, I think we can move on.
Okay, thank you. We're doing very well on time, so I appreciate everyone's participation. So initially, we had thought about breaking into breakout rooms. I really don't think that is necessary. And given this tool we're using for engagement on the phone, I think we'll stick with the kind of open forum. But now it's really an opportunity to kind of provide open feedback, hear about it, discuss. And so kind of put these 4 questions up. And again, we're thinking about natural resources, recreation, and then this third kind of harder to define, but talking about planning and transportation. And so with these 4 questions in mind, we're going to do this word cloud again. This time you have more characters. You'll have 100 characters. But again, the more concise you can make your answer, it's going to make this word cloud look better. And then I'd like to open up and kind of hear from you all. But we'll keep this open for a little while. Okay, so the responses have slowed down. Clearly trails, I agree, the trails are incredible. The Trails Committee who maintain it, along with the DPW, incredible. One that popped out at me that I'd love to hear a little more about is the signage and wayfinding popped up at one point. They seem to have disappeared, but this is something that, at least from my perspective, is always a little bit of a challenge. Like, how much signage do we want? Do we want more signage? Did anyone who included signage and wayfinding want to respond to that and talk about that a little bit?
Brandon, I'm happy to if no one else wants to speak to it first. And I know that I've been hearing from Newton, from Lexington, from a number of other towns, really appreciating wayfinding, sort of trail signage arrows that help someone from the road find the trails. And that I think Wellesley's got some great, small signage and arrows now so that people don't feel lost on the trails and know where they are and can connect from the street.
Great, thanks, Allison. Invasives management is popping up, and this is another one that is a huge challenge for the town. And I wonder if it will pop up later on some of the things that we're missing as well. But did anyone who lists invasives management want to talk about how we're doing well or speak to that at all? Martha, I see your hand up.
I will just give Wellesley high marks. I was walking I don't know what the paved trail is in Lexington, and the Japanese knotweed there is like everywhere, unfortunately. And so I know we don't really like the black matting, but it has at least kept some of the Japanese knotweed at bay. And I think the invasives is a really tough battle. And I think we seem to, as a town, to be doing it best we can. And the DPW does a really good job. I've seen them out there clearing stuff on occasion.
Okay. Thanks, Martha. Laura.
I was just going to say, I know we did some education, probably more driven by collaboration with other departments on invasives, and we've had some great volunteers in town. I won't name them, but great volunteer efforts staying on top of certain places. And I'm not sure in terms of the connection between our education and our volunteers, but I think we've done some good things there, and I hope we'll continue.
Thanks, Laura. I will point out in the NRC's capital budget, we did include a substantial budget in, I think, fiscal year 26 or 27 for some invasive management. I think the thinking was, how can we look at the black matting on Fuller Brook? It may be that that's not the solution, the amount we've asked for, but we do continue to think about that specifically and the invasive management. I see recreation, active. Does anybody want to talk about why they put active and recreation there?
Yeah, Brandon, that may have been me. It's Paul Crane. I'm just trying to raise the issue between sort of active and passive recreation. I mean, I don't think walking and strolling is necessarily completely passive, but it's not sort of the organized sports activities in town. And I just think the NRC always has to balance between people pushing for sort of more playing field space and space for whether it's baseball or soccer or lacrosse or whatever, and just people's ability to just wander around town and enjoy what very limited open space we have.
Thanks, Paul. Laura Crawford.
Thanks. Yeah, I put it up too. I think, was that Paul that just went in before me? I think that the NRC does give a lot of land space time to recreation activities. And in some ways, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to put more time, effort, and activities for recreation. But I definitely agree with Paul that we need to have an equal focus on the, Memorial Grove and watching the birds at Morse's Pond and so forth. So that's why I put the recreation, that there is a lot of time and effort spent on that. That's how I felt. That's what you're doing a lot of, meeting the town's needs of, but I don't necessarily, so that, yeah. So, stick with that.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Aaron Riley.
Yeah, this is not exactly about this dichotomy between recreation and passive, but I just wanted to give a huge shout out, and I have no idea who's responsible for it, but for the rule that if your dog is under your control, it does not have to be on a leash. And that's something that I think we all kind of take for granted, and I just want to appreciate it because it could easily, with the flip of a switch, be taken away. And I think that if that were actively put out there as a question, I think you'd get huge feedback that it's a positive thing. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a sort of not quite passive, not quite recreation, but something that a lot of people, I think, are huge fans of. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Aaron. I'm going to move on to the next question, similar format. What could the town do better and how? This is going to be hard to articulate in a word cloud, but try your best. Okay, while people are finishing up, I see no idling was mentioned a lot. I will remind everyone that the town, I believe, either through a police regulation or I think it was through a police regulation, now has a no idling. The police can fine. So I'm wondering anecdotally if anyone has noticed any difference in behavior given that new regulation. So I'll ask maybe someone who identified that, or maybe also to think about where. Of course, from the NRC's perspective, we have the parking lots at some of the parks, and there has been signage put up at some of the parks, but curious about if anyone's seen any improvement and where they feel like they see idling.
At the high school.
At every school, at drop off and pickup.
You also see town trucks and police cars.
Yeah, I agree. I actually frequently stop, unfortunately, DPW trucks and ask them to turn off their engines, as well as when there's development going on at a home, like construction site. Lots of times to be the contractors who leave their engines running.
Lisa, I see your hand up. Lisa Olney.
Yeah, so thank you, Brendan. We see a lot of idling at the RDF. Just going to note that.
Okay, thanks. In terms of protecting trees, I mentioned Chapter 87. Unfortunately, the NRC has had to enforce Chapter 87, and we are aware of some limitations in terms of how that rule can be enforced. But we have been able to resolve issues where people have purposefully or inadvertently removed or damaged a public shade tree. And we do have a tree preservation bylaw which governs trees on private property. But I'm wondering if people, for the folks who highlighted that, what other ideas, what else would they like to see? I think there is a sense that we're balancing private property rights with the public benefits of trees. But maybe somebody wants to elaborate on that.
Yeah, Brandon, it's Paul Kramer again. I was involved in this when I was on the NRC. I'd be interested if the NRC reached out to contractors, whether Arborway Tree Care or other people who work in the town, not so much citizens, just to make sure they're aware that they should not be removing public trade trees, even if a resident or somebody requests it. I remember when we had the issue up at Boulder Brook, the claim was that, oh, the guy didn't know what he was doing. It's hard for me to believe sometimes that some of the people who do significant work in Wellesley would not know that they're in the process of removing a public shade tree. Because I think the cynical part of me thinks there are times when somebody says, you know what, just have them cut it down, I'll pay the fine. And you're like, well, that's 100-year-old tree you just took down. And the fact that we collect a couple $1,000s in penalty revenue does not deal with the fact that that tree is not going to reappear in the same condition for another 80 years, So it'd be interesting to make more of the contractors aware so that we say we will in fact go after you for treble damages if we think you're consciously removing a public shade tree.
Thanks,
Hi,
Paul. That's a great suggestion.
Hi, this is Josephine Oken. I also see a lot of contractors cutting homeowners cutting the trees down along the 10 feet of the property line without any consequences. I don't think that's enforced very regularly.
I'll ask a follow-up question. So if those are on private property, then and I don't want to get too far down the tree preservation bylaw rabbit hole, but not every tree is subject to the tree preservation bylaw. They are only subject to the tree preservation bylaw when that bylaw is triggered through a building permit. So I just want to be sure that we're on the same understanding. That are you saying that trees are cut down that should be subject to the bylaw and that's not being enforced? Because the bylaw in essence allows folks to cut down trees.
Yes, I think we're on the same page in terms of during the construction or rebuild or whatever. Yes.
Brandon, if you've identified a gap in this sense, if somebody says, I know if I start my construction project, that tree will be subject to the bylaw. So you know what, I'll cut it down first and then I'll start my construction project. I think that perhaps says, wait a second, we need to look at the bylaw that says, any removal of a tree within that zone should be something that needs to be discussed, I guess. I mean, that would be concerning to me if that's the way people are going about it.
Yeah. Well, and as a follow-up, I can provide some information we put together regarding the bylaw that kind of spells it out. There were revisions that there's no longer any exemptions. They decreased the size of trees that are subject, but we do know that there are still some allowances. And frankly, if folks want to pay and their plan says that a tree is coming down, it can under the current bylaw. Martha?
Brandon, yeah, stupid question. And I apologize for my ignorance. When somebody pulls a building permit, do we provide them with an information piece regarding tree protection in Wellesley and the importance of trees just in general?
I don't believe so. I don't think I certainly haven't provided the building department anything. It is a requirement as your building permit application to provide that tree preservation plan. But there's no information. Again, another great suggestion, similar to educating the contractors who are working in Wellesley. Is there any other item that's on the screen right now that anyone would like to elaborate on? I see the mountain bike park. I see some safety issues in terms of pedestrian traffic. Eric, I see you visible.
Hey, Brandon. I just wanted to chime in briefly on the mountain bike park question. So this is something Trails Committee has discussed a few times in recent months, as we've noticed. And I know NRC and even Select Board have dealt with the issue of people, as they're using our trails more, starting to build mountain biking features on them. And so we threw around the idea of, is there someplace we could put a pump track or a designated mountain bike trail to concentrate that activity and sort of eliminate the degradation to other trails. There's no obvious location for it, but something to keep in mind going forward. The other one I wanted to chime in on had to do with public access to private land. We've seen over the last couple of years with the pandemic that a great deal of the open space in town is not public land. I would love to see something more along the lines of the British model of right to roam, or a more progressive view of right of way. And so, discussions with big landowners going forward is something I'd like to see prioritized.
Great, thanks, Eric.
Sure.
Okay, if there aren't any other comments, I will move on. Here's a question about what's missing. And some of these popped up in the last one, but maybe kind of specific opportunities either for programming, facilities, amenities. Sorry about that. While people are filling this out, I am interested in someone put boat access at Moore's Pond. Does somebody want to address that? Talk more about that?
Yeah, it's Richard here. Yeah, it's something both myself and Pete Jones have been banging on for a while, because it's actually quite difficult to get small boats into the pond because there isn't a good little slipway there, and of course it's the gate is locked a lot of the time. So hopefully it's something that can be resolved.
Okay.
Yeah, I might want to add on to that, Brandon. Also, this is Pete Jones. Yeah, so the gate up here by Turner and Halsey Avenue. We now have a gate down by the water department, so there's really no need to have the gate up here, and that would give us, the residents, access to get down to the pond for fishing with boats or sailing with boats. And I think that activity would pick up. The problem is it's just too, it's too complicated for people. I've seen people walk all the way down Halsey Ave with a canoe and have to walk all the way down to the pond with it. So I think, we need to do something to remove that gate and use the gate that's down there and use the parking lot that's down there.
Okay, and so do you get the sense?
Pete, this is, sorry, Brandon, it's Paul Kramer. It's been 30 years of me in that gate. You may have noticed that the gate's open more frequently than it has been in the past, partly because I've worked with Matt and others to just say, please open the gate. But the issue in the past has been the water department's concern about access to the pond because of it as a public water source. I also think that Jack Pilecki and the police also have interests about access to the pond. So those are two people you may want to talk to as well about it. But I completely agree with you that it would ease pressure on parking on Turner Road if the gate were open more frequently, and it would certainly make it easier for people to get access toward the pond for canoeing and sailing and things like that.
Yeah, correct. We get about 65 to 70 cars during a warm day on all the way down from the gate, all the way to all the way to Weston Road, and then down part of Halsey and down part of Marshall Road.
Yeah.
So it's pretty backed up. And what I hear from the residents here in my precinct is, we pay to have this, the NRC has this as a park. The problem is the things we like to do, that gate prevents us from doing. I mean, we see a lot of kids and adults taking their families down to go fishing. They have to walk all the way down to go fishing. They can't take their vehicles down there to drop off a boat, et cetera. And I think we could do something there. And if they're worried about the water supply from a thing that happened 50 years ago, I assure them that there will be nobody changing their father's Maserati oil down in that parking lot. And I think that with that gate there, that'll give them the security. And if they need to, they can put security cameras down there because we do have fiber.
Yeah, I would recommend just keep the pressure on. I'm with you.
So can I just ask the general question about, I understand improving access to boats. And we asked a similar question when we were looking at the erosion study where, having 100 paths may not be the best opportunity to address some of the erosion issues down, but what we kind of heard was that people like their informal access points. Is the main gate to Moore's Pond the preferred access point? And do you think it would help with some of the kind of informal boat launches?
Yeah,
I think it's the preferred access point if you're going to bring a canoe on top of your car or something else. I mean, you can obviously get to the pond from multiple other sources if you're walking or biking, but it's not easy to get a significant boat, whether it's a canoe or a sailboat or something like that, to the pond besides through the parking lot.
Yeah, and I think, and Richard and I have discussed this, I think, we used to have, in the old days, we used to have a lot of sailing regattas and things like that that could be done on the weekends. And we didn't have to worry about the gate issue and access to the pond, as well as many of the families like to go down, believe it or not, and fish at night. That's a popular item also. And so it just limits the total access to the pond to only a few people that are surrounding the pond.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. I hear you. Something to think about. I want to just, what can someone clarify what activation of downtown parks means?
Brandon, I was thinking about how lovely it was to have some music, and I don't know the name of it, but one of the park next to the Wellesley Square train station, but closer to the road. So things like that, or we had some outdoor dining last year, that kind of thing, sort of right in Wellesley Square and Wellesley Hills.
Thank you. Indoor track came up, and admittedly, I don't know, I know one of the action steps in the last plan was looking at 900 Worcester. That came to reality, but I'm guessing from this comment that that does not serve as an indoor track for the town. Does anyone want to comment on that?
I'm not positive on this. It's Paul again. But I believe the indoor facility that's there is good for walking, but I don't think it would be considered an indoor track in the sense of somebody's ability to run like you run at the high school track or something else. It's just not big enough.
Okay, thanks. Nancy Westenberg, your hand's up.
I'm married to a very serious senior runner, and he laments the lack of a real track at 900 Worcester. I just will throw out that Babson offers memberships, so their indoor track is not bad for people, especially in the winter time. Seniors do not want to be running on the road and risking a broken hip or something. I don't know if the NRC can, plug into that and partner with them, maybe.
We can certainly investigate it, or one of the other boards or commissions who might be better equipped. We can look into that.
Yeah, maybe it could be something for recreation, because I will corroborate Paul's point that the running, walking area at 900 Worcester is not really sufficient for runners.
Same here, agreed.
Okay, is there anything else on this list that anyone would like to comment on or have questions about?
I just think that the senior and ADA trail access is really a wonderful thing, because we've focused on accessibility for playgrounds in a very serious way, but not so much in the other end of life. And I'm only 58, and I have a lot of friends who are quite close in my age who, for various reasons, knees and hips, can't get down much of a slope. And they're not, I'm not even talking about wheelchairs or anything, just like, walking. So that would be great.
Erin, this is Martha. I'll back you up on that. I see a lot of, obviously I live near the center of town, and I see a lot of seniors in particular in the center of town. And I don't know if it's because it's a little bit easier and flatter access. There's this lovely old Russian couple who walk every morning, and then they go sit on the bench overlooking Skating Pond. But I do think that it seems to be easier in the center of town for older folks to sort of walk.
Thanks, Martha. Thanks, Erin. Nancy, your hand's still up. Did you have another comment? Okay, the hand's down. All right, with that, we are ahead of schedule. I have another slide for questions. Just any final questions, any comments, requests for more information. We can look through the question and answer. See if I can answer any of these. There was a question about a solar array. And I think it says, can people group together to propose establishing a solar farm on town open space? I think that the easy answer is yes, of course they could. And I do know that the town has established special zoning districts. I think as part of the, now I cannot remember the program that the state has, the name of it. But in order to become eligible for, I know it has the word green, oh, Green Communities Grant. One of the requirements was that we have a by right area where you can install solar panels. And so there is some zoning district in the town of Wellesley that has that designation. I believe it's over at the Cloverleaf at 95 where it meets Route 9. Happy to discuss that.
Is Paul, I'd be curious for the NRC to look into any properties that you have that might be able to be used for solar. You know, as a rec guy, it pains me every time I go by Natick High School and see their solar panels on their parking lot and say, why don't we have those at the high school? Now, that's not in the NRC's jurisdiction, but why don't we have solar panels down at Morse's Pond? You know, why don't we have solar panels in some other places around town where we could clearly have them? And I don't know what's blocking that. Whether it's, you know, we don't have the capital to build them in the first place, or whether people think they'll be too hard to maintain. But clearly there are other communities around us that have got that done, and I don't know why we can't seem to move on it.
Yeah, covered parking. I see it a lot at schools.
Right. So, but you know, the NRC doesn't have jurisdiction of the school parking lot. That'll be a high school issue, but you certainly have jurisdiction in other parks. You know, that you could look, I would encourage you and Raina and others to look into. Obviously, the one that pops out I just mentioned is Morse's Pond. That parking lot down there is pretty significant. It's certainly, you know, as much space potentially, I think, as the high school parking lot. So, you know, what prevents us from putting a solar panel down there and have people park underneath it? I mean, you know, if Natick High School can do it, why can't we do it?
Good point. Oops. Aaron Riley, your hand is up.
Yeah, I often, if not always, at meetings like this, offer my gratitude to the people, staff, and volunteers who, you know, work so tirelessly for the town. But I feel like this is a very interesting self-selected group of movers and shakers in town. So I'm going to extend my appreciation to all the people out there that are on this call who do all the great things that make this town such a nice place to be. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I agree. Pete Jones.
Yeah, just a comment on the solar panels, because I know everybody's in it, and I was one of the first adopters to solar panels, and I have them on one of my houses. And at the 20-year mark, I found out that nobody wants to take the used solar panels because they are classified by the EPA as certified hazardous waste with a number of dangerous chemicals in them, et cetera. And to get a recycle program in there is a must, and they can't be stored and stacked because that's against EPA regulations also. These are things that haven't been brought out because of the situations that have developed with the emotion around the solar. So I would advise everyone to look up the EPA certified hazardous waste rating on that and make their own decision whether they want to get into that, because those will be deposited in landfills, et cetera, which will also increase our problems with more chemicals in the dumping zones. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Laura Robert.
Oh, hey, Brandon, I think it is covered somewhere in this plan, but there's a lot of private land with the colleges, country club. There's lands that are forested that we use as open space that we, probably take for granted, but in this 7-year plan, and I do think I saw something somewhere, but I just wanted to add that it's important that not just the NRC, but all of the boards and departments, stay on the pulse of what's happening, but oftentimes it's too late. So when something is going down on one of these private properties, so something more proactive there in terms of more frequent conversations maybe with these property owners in terms of planning and what's anticipated, so that we can get out in front of any development versus maintaining it as the kind of land that it appears to be now, but may not be zoned that way.
Great, thanks, Laura. Tim, is Tim still there? Did Tim want to? Okay, and I see Aaron's hand is still up. I'm not sure if you had another comment.
No, I just never put it down. Sorry.
No problem. Okay. These were the questions. I will, in terms of next steps, I will get all this information. I will put it up on our website. If I encourage you guys to look at the survey results again. We have an online map where you can point to specific issues that might need to be addressed or looked at. So I'd ask you all to look at that. And it is, if you go to our homepage, the NRC's homepage, one of the spotlights will take you to the Open Space and Rec Plan page. And if it doesn't right now, it will in a few minutes. And I will get these results compiled back to you. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of getting the plan updated, but we will continue to work on that, send it back out, make sure that we got it right based on your input, and hope to submit this sometime in the new year, in the early new year. So we'll continue to work on that and appreciate your time tonight and your feedback. Again, really, none of the things that the town does would be possible without your support. And I think the NRC relies on your input to develop our 5-year capital plan, our year-to-year plans. And so thanks again very much for being here tonight and giving your time. And with that, I will say good night and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Good job.
Thank you, Brandon.
Good night.
Night.